We are talking about the resurrection of the male leader in not just his business, but in his home, making sure that while he's having so much success on the business front, that success translates into the home for his wife, for his children, for every part of his life, that it really mirrors and matches the legacy that he is working so hard to build. And y'all, I am so thrilled to be joined here today by Bryan Post. He is a child behavioral expert, international speaker, successful entrepreneur, and he has been working with thousands of men, women, children, particularly in the adoptive system, really bring peace there. And now he's working more so with men and really helping them cultivate their legacy. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. I'm honored.
I'm so excited for our conversation. You know, we were chatting in the green room just before this and really identifying that there is a dissonance between the success that so many men experience in business, in their entrepreneurial legacy and journey. And then when they go home, you know, we're a couple days out from Christmas and the end of the year. And so we're looking at being with our family for over a week plus. And for some people, that's really daunting. You know, that's actually not something that they're excited about. And so I'd love to hear from your perspective, from the men that you're helping and really the families that you're nurturing and really helping them achieve success within the confines of their home, which is supposed to be their haven. What are the biggest problems and roadblocks that you're seeing men encounter?
Well, I think that's a great question. And it reminds me I was listening to a billionaire who was talking about how much he dreaded the weekends because and this is someone who's married. He knew all of his employees were going to be with their families. On Saturdays, he couldn't harass them with work. And he couldn't wait until Sunday evening so he could start firing off emails again. And he said, when the weekends arrive, he said, I am racked by depression and anxiety. And I thought that was so powerful because as entrepreneurs, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years now. Entrepreneurship is a gladiator sport. You go out there and you eat what you kill and you bring it home to provide for your family. And you have to navigate all these different relationships and all these different dynamics. And really, there's a lot of adrenaline and there's a lot of dopamine. I mean, a lot of times, you know, entrepreneurs talk about being serial entrepreneurs. I think entrepreneurship is probably one of the single most profound addictions that occurs, and we don't even realize it. We don't even realize how high we get from the constant stress and adrenaline of trying to create this business, the successful business that ultimately benefits your family and benefits the community. And we don't realize that when the weekend comes and then we're faced with returning to our family after being on the battlefield, you have all of this adrenaline let down. You have all this dopamine that goes away, and you're just left with this void of not knowing quite how to navigate. And I like to think about this as, especially as I'm launching this new program for men, it's the second mountain. It's my program specifically for men, and then we'll actually work into the entire family. But when I think about myself, it's like you've climbed the first mountain of success, which is business success and financial success. And maybe you've climbed that mountain, 5 times, 10 times. But then it's that second mountain, and it's the mountain of legacy, and it's the mountain of meaning that I think becomes such a daunting mountain to climb. And we think because we have climbed the success and the financial success mountain by ourselves, and entrepreneurs take a lot of pride in just gritting it out and grinding all the way to the top. And I know I've said it more than once, I'm going to climb this mountain, whether I'm dead on the side, I'm going to climb this freaking mountain. We take a lot of pride in that, but we do it alone. And obviously we bring our teams in with us, and we need the support of our families. But there's lots of us who, as entrepreneurs, who are just like, I'm gonna just will my way through this thing. And then when you have to return home, you have to take all that and you have to set it aside. And you're like, what's what are you left with? And I think that becomes the real challenge for us, especially when you think about going into holiday seasons where now we're going to be with our families. I know I felt it myself, and I'm someone who specialized in emotions and trauma for 30 years, but I'll be looking at going into a weekend with I have adult kids and I have grandkids, and I'm just like, what are the points of connection? Like, where am I going to find meaning in this? And you really have to explore that in a deeper way. And I can just dive right into this, but I'll slow down for just a moment.
Man, no, let's dive right in. Bryan, this is so good. Please keep going.
Okay, so what we oftentimes don't realize is that we are motivated 99% of the time from an unconscious place. And that comes from our state level of memory. So I've been studying the brain for 3 decades now. That comes from our state level of memory. And your state level of memory first of all, it stores every experience you've ever had in your life. And that begins in utero. So as early as the 4th week after conception, the fetus is already starting to develop the process of hearing. By the 2nd trimester, the fetus is already capable of psychological processing, but that's all energetic. That's called pre and perinatal memories, because you don't have thoughts that you associate with them. So all you have is this energy. So you start storing these energetic moments from the time you're conceived. And it's all stored in your brainstem, which is associated with your state level of memory. Well, you accumulate all these stories and all these messages and all this memory. Now, in the first year of life, Christene, the human brain is forming 1 million neural connections per second in the first year of life. Those are stored experiences. Those experiences never go away. They just sit in the bottom of your brainstem, and they inform so many aspects of your life. In the 50s, there was a scientist named John Bowlby, and he said the first 3 years of our lives define the blueprints for all of our future social and emotional relationships. But after the 90s, which was the decade of the brain, we actually know that it's from conception to age 5. By 5 years old, the human brain is 95 to 97% developed. So you have every experience that you encounter, whether it's in utero through your biological mother, or whether it's after you've been born, and it's just through experiencing the world through your parents and through experiences. I spent a lot of time. I was in foster care. I was also adopted. So this is why this early developmental stuff is really near and dear to my heart. But it applies to all of us. So whatever you're experiencing in that first conception to 5 years of life, those are stored blueprints. Now, see, what we don't realize is that most of all of the social and emotional experiences that we have to this day as adults, all are informed by those first core experiences. There's those first conception of experiences. So you'll go into, and I just had a fantastic, and I love them. One of the things I love teaching is mindfulness. I believe that mindfulness and self-awareness is the key to our greatest sense of peace and calm and self-love. And I just had this experience with some of my employees. I have a fairly big agency of 75 employees in Northern California. And we're creating this new team. So we brought in these new professionals, and these professionals were getting really worked up about this one facet of our company. And it's, in mental health, you have to be HIPAA compliant. And so they're really worked up about this. And this is something I've been a mental health professional for 30 years, never given it more than 10 minutes of thought. I mean, not even that much, actually. And so they're all becoming newly licensed. And so then they start dialing in on all these fears and anxieties around HIPAA. And I'm like, it's so foreign, because I just don't dwell in that space, in that environment. But they're new, and they're cautious, and they've been inundated by the matrix of fear. I believe we do live in a matrix, and we get conditioned for it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to check all these things out, and I'm going to find these things out and get you guys some sense of security and some sense of calm. And I thought we had addressed that in the meeting, and we moved on. And then the very next day, one of my clinicians is like, oh, I'm not going to see any more families until this is in place, until we're taking a stance. And I was just like, oh my God, what? I mean, I was like, wow, that felt really intense to me. And here's the thing. I didn't blame her. I was frustrated because I'm like, oh God, young professionals on their pedestals of ignorance. I didn't blame her. I understand. But I spent the better part of 2.5 to 3 days asking myself, what about this dynamic is causing you to have this reaction?
Right.
What is this stirring up for you emotionally? And I knew almost right away. It just triggered all of my trust, all of my abandonment, all of my rejection issues in a really core way, because I had extended myself and said, hey, I'm going to find these things out. So I thought we were good. And then to be like within less than 24 hours to come back and be told, hey, nothing you said matters to me. I'm not doing anything. I was like, whoa. So that really was challenging. And
Right.
I love that. But do you know how few of us have the opportunity to know that your real source of power is in your emotional awareness? And if I was not conditioned to try to seek emotional self-awareness, I would feel so helpless and so victimized by that. And I feel like a lot of times as adults, and I'm going to say men because I'm really focused on men for this new project, we go out and we are in so much control of things, and we are commanding things and giving orders. And then we come back to our homes, and some men don't realize that business and home are different. So they want to command and dominate. I get accused of it sometimes as well. But what we really don't realize is that the sport of business, though it is emotional, it's mostly cognitive. So you're always trying to figure things out, even though we bring our emotional being to the dynamic, to that playing field. What we don't realize is that family, home, relationships, kids, spouses, that's all emotional. See, that's heart stuff. And in our society, we strive, and we've been conditioned for this. We've strived to be really cognitive, to be really analytical, to be really logical. See, that's your left hemisphere of your brain. But what we don't realize is that the moment you become stressed, which is a right hemisphere experience, the moment you become stressed, your right hemisphere, which is your emotional brain, takes over. Your emotional brain dictates to your thinking brain. And then not only that, but your right hemisphere is connected to your heart. So the moment Joseph Liddell wrote this in a book called The Emotional Brain. He's a New York University neuroscientist. He says, in times of stress, and I teach this to all the parents and the adults I work with, in times of stress, our thinking becomes confused and distorted, and our short-term memory is suppressed. So when we become stressed, our thinking becomes confused and distorted, and we see the worst, and then our short-term memory shuts down. And then when you're not aware of that, you're just from a really confused and illogical place, you're just trying to force yourself through a process. And that ends up creating a lot of conflict. That creates a lot of tension and a lot of frustration. And then we bring that into relationships. We bring that into our homes with children, with our spouses.
I'm so grateful that you brought up, honestly, the disconnect between the right and left hemisphere of the brain, because we have been raised in society to really only cultivate the left hemisphere. You know, ever since adolescence and pre-K, we're taught numbers, we're taught math, we're taught science, and we're not taught the skills necessary to cultivate the muscles so that when we switch over to stress in our right brain, it's like falls flat, and this little kid is the one kind of at the helm of the ship, because we haven't taught it how. We've only cultivated the left hemisphere. It's like we've got an adult half of our brain and then a child half of our brain. And so
Yes, I
people are
love
like,
that.
wow, why did I just encounter such a different person? Why are you
Yeah.
so, why do I feel like I'm walking on eggshells? Sometimes you're an adult and sometimes you're a child. And it's such a dissonance and it's such a disconnect. And then people feel like so out of whack. So I'd love to hear, Bryan, from you when we're in stress. And I want to get more so back to the business and the home life, but just quickly, 3 practices for us to start cultivating that muscle of the right hemisphere of the brain so that we can start effectively growing up.
Yes, no, it's beautiful. I love the way the kind of the metaphor that you use, the analogy, because there's something really important. And you said 3 practices. So the very first practice is awareness. The very first practice is the awareness that the emotional experience is real and it is dominating. And in relationships are emotional. Relationships are not cognitive. They're emotional. So you navigate relationship with your right hemisphere in your heart. You don't navigate relationship with your left hemisphere. But what's really important about what you said is this, I'm going to tie this to a kind of a scientific statement. Anytime you stress, you regress. Anytime you stress, you emotionally regress. So when you said we get conditioned for this thinking and these numbers and this adult, we grow this adult into this left hemisphere, but then we neglect this child in the right hemisphere. It's so true, because when you stress, you regress emotionally, and that child, like you said, is who takes the helm of the ship. And that
Wow.
adult's sitting there freaking out. But the thing we don't realize is that we regress in that into that child within all of us, in that is tied into these various places, these various challenges. And I love to say to people, and I want to give you the 3 things. One is the awareness that your emotions matter and that they're very important. Number 2, you have to be aware that the moment you become stressed, and stress impacts us in more ways than you know. You will be stressed and you won't even know it. This is why it's so important to start to really slow down and pay attention. But the thing you've got to do is you've got to condition yourself to breathe. And every time I say it, Christine, it's the most, it's like, it's so simple, yet it is the most difficult thing you can condition yourself to do, is to breathe. Because what happens is the moment you become stressed, and Herbert Benson was a Harvard physiologist in the 70s. He discovered this. The moment you become stressed, you start holding your breath. You start holding your breath, and then you start taking really short, ineffective breaths. And then that cortisol in your brain starts to increase. That cortisol is your brain's primary stress hormone. Then that's what's driving your confused and distorted thinking. That's what's suppressing your short-term memory. So you have to have the awareness of stress and emotion, that relationships are emotional, home is emotional. You have to be able to slow down. And 2, you have to condition yourself to breathe. Condition yourself to breathe. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is just to breathe. You don't have to do anything else, just to breathe. And here's the 3rd thing I'd really suggest people to start just trying on. I always say, you go to the store, you see something you like, you try it on. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy what I'm telling you. Just try it on. Try it on, see how it fits. And that is the moment you find yourself becoming reactive to anything. So reactive, feeling upset, feeling out of sorts, feeling anxious, even feeling depressed. You take 3 to 10 deep breaths and you ask yourself this question. First of all, you say, how am I feeling right now? You ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And you got to get really slow, because you got to listen to your body, because this is emotional. It's not cognitive. So you're using a cognitive framework by asking the question, how am I feeling right now? Then you got to take a deep breath, and you got to get really slow. And then you identify that feeling. And here's like the linchpin. You ask yourself, when have I felt that way before? Oh gosh. If you will ask that question in a quiet, emotional place, you say, how am I feeling right now? And this is like current
Mm,
day stuff. How am I feeling right now? Current day, something's happening. Something's happening. I'm breathing. I'm stressing. I'm stressing. I'm calming down. I'm connecting. How am I feeling right now? And then you say very gently, when have I felt that way before? And you just listen to your body. You will
mm,
unlock no telling what. And then as
mm,
soon as you do that, that's the power. Because now you know, now you're holding what
mm.
you're really stressed about. Now you're holding. See, I say there are only two primary emotions: love and fear. And I
Yeah.
believe that I believe that the single most pervasive form of trauma in our society is unexpressed grief. I don't believe
Mm,
that we've neither been taught to grieve. We haven't had the space created for us to grieve. We're afraid of emotions, and we're especially afraid of sadness, and we get so used to just using anger. Anger is like the best defense because you don't have to feel. You can just protect yourself. So I believe that unexpressed grief sets at the root of a lot of things. But as soon as you can do that, you can hold that. And then you can be right there with that energy because it's all it is.
mm,
Emotion. Emotion is just energy and movement. It's just
mm,
energy and motion. So you get right there where you can really dial down, and it may take a little practice. You get really dialed down. You can hold that. You can connect to when you felt that before, and then you grieve that. Grieve
mm.
that. Grieve that, and then allow yourself to find some peace and realize no one's going to die. I love to say that. That could be like one A or one B. No one is going to die. When you become stressed because of that confused and distorted thinking and because of that short-term memory, the first thing your brain says is, I'm going to die. And so you get
Yes.
this surge of adrenaline, right?
Right.
And it just becomes a more challenging situation.
So good. Bryan, thank you so much. I'm just going to repeat this back to you, these 3 steps. Ask, how am I feeling? Take a
Yes.
deep breath and take 3 to 10 breaths. So these questions are kind of in the circumference and housed within breathing and just taking deep breaths. 3 to 10 breaths. First, ask, how am I feeling? And then, when have I felt this way before?
Mhm.
Bryan, I'm so grateful I love this 2-part question because so much of what we're experiencing here in the present has roots in the past. Most
Yes,
everything.
that's right.
So, to your point of when we are moving into we regress and when we kind of move into the right hemisphere of the brain and we start getting stressed, you said it shuts off our short-term memory and then
Mhm.
it kind of brings back all the fear of the past into the now. And
Mhm.
then when we think about all of a sudden those thoughts we're having, which is, you said, just tell yourself you're not going to die. It's because our primal brain is kicking into gear. And those are typically fight, flight, freeze, or fawn manifestations. And then
Mhm.
that's where it's people have these really weird connections with us. And we know how it is to connect with somebody else where they're feeling unstable almost. And it's because they're forgetting that they're here in this present moment and that they're not in the past. There's a
That's
book
right.
called But the Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van
Mhm.
der Kolk. I'm sure you've
That's
read
right.
it.
Yes.
But effectively, these men who were experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, their body did not know that they were not on the battlefield. And our
Mhm.
bodies have the same experience. That's why the deep breathing just brings us into a place of
Mhm.
calming and almost remembering where we are. So the breath reactivates our remembrance and recollection that we're right here, right now, because it brings back our short term memory into focus. So I'm
Mhm.
so grateful for that. I want to talk about moving from, the recognition that men, specifically the men that you're working with, one thing that stood out to me as you were talking, they're really the ones in the limelight in the business, especially entrepreneurs. They're praised, they've got accolades, they're speaking, they're on podcasts, they have stage presence, they've got everyone saying yes to them in their organization. If they're smart entrepreneurs, they'll have some people saying no. But for the most part, everyone's at their beck and call. They walk
Mhm.
through those doors of their home and they're no longer it's no longer their domain where they get to kind of have everyone kowtow to them and they get to
Mhm.
tell everyone what to do. And I think
Mhm.
that that's in cognitive, the role of the left hemisphere. It's yes and no, black and white. There's a lot more that allows for there to be existence within a box and a framework versus relationship where all of a sudden there's a vast amount of color that comes
Mhm.
from not existing in black and white. And so
Mhm.
it's just a completely different environment. and they're also not the head honcho anymore. So
Mhm.
can we talk about the mindset shift? Think of it as the entrepreneur, and I know a lot of people are working from home, but figuratively speaking, they walk through the doors of the home. What mindset shifts need to take place as they cross that threshold?
That's an excellent question. Excellent. I love that. And I also want to make sure that your audience understands that we're not just saying that there are men entrepreneurs. We know you're an entrepreneur, women entrepreneurs. When I say entrepreneur, I really mean everyone. And I'm just talking about men today because that's really what this next mountain in my life is really about, is really working with men. But one of the most important things that we can do is, see, I always say, it's like, we're always looking for tools. We're always looking for, I want to add more tools, and I want to have more tools in my toolbox. What people don't realize is that you're the tool. Like, there really is no tool. You are the tool.
I love
And
that.
so you as the tool, and unfortunately in the 90s, it was kind of derogatory. Don't be a tool, man. But the reality is that you are a tool. You are the tool. This is your instrument. And how you hone your instrument, and how you synchronize and harmonize and bring into tone your instrument, because you're creating frequency, you're creating vibration. It's the most important thing. So it all starts with the awareness that this is your instrument. And when you've been outside of your home, even if you're working from home and you're in your office, whatever, when you've been outside, you're not in sync, you're not in harmony with the orchestra that is your family. Your family. See, families, what makes a family is that you actually, over a period of time, become neurophysiologically enmeshed with one another. Your cells, unlike if you came to my home, you would have the vibration experience of my family, but your cells are not enmeshed with the rest of my family. But it doesn't take long. That's a very small window before all of a sudden you start to feel more intensively what we feel. So your family has a harmony, and when you've been outside of that, you're out of harmony. So you got to realize that you're bringing your instrument back to your orchestra, and you got to calm that instrument down. You got to relax. You got to breathe. You got to realize that everything's going to be okay. Now, if the house is dirty, or if the food's not the certain way, or if there are clothes piled up, or if there are bills that need to be paid, or if the dog needs to be walked, or the lawn needs to be mowed, you have to realize no one's going to die. Take a deep breath. Slow your instrument down, because otherwise you just come out marching right in with your trombone, and you're completely out of sync with everyone. Everyone's like, oh,
Yes.
stop. See,
Wow.
that's a neurophysiologic feedback loop. So you got to calm yourself down. You come in and you ease into the vibration of the home. You ease into the vibration of it, because we have an extremely powerful vibration as adults, and as parents, and as spouses. And so when you ease into the vibration, you get into the rhythm. All of a sudden, once you get into the rhythm, you realize that you can increase your frequency at any time, and then everyone starts dancing with you, because that's our role as parents.
Wait,
Right?
can we go back to that? That's such an important thing that you just said. We ease in, we kind of fit the vibration, and then we actually can choose to elevate it. Talk
That's
about
right.
that.
You get to determine, because we have the more mature physiology. We have the stronger frequency, because we are adults, and we have years, and we have history, and so we have power in that. And so when you go in to the home, and I'll use the analogy of the thermostat.
Bryan.
You go into the home, and it's cold or it's hot. You don't just run over and just adjust the thermostat to where you think it needs to be, because then everyone else is already acclimated to that temperature. So you wait, you calm down, and if you give yourself a moment, you might realize that you just walked out from outside that was really hot, and it felt really cold, but it's actually not cold at all. It's actually the right
Yes.
temperature. And then because you're the adult, because you're mature, and because you're aware, you can, once you settle in, you can say, hey, are you guys feeling a little chilly? And they might be like, yeah, I'm kind of cold. Okay, so then you adjust the thermostat. So you do that with your presence and with your frequency. You do it with your presence because of your frequency. But a lot of times we're so disconnected. We bring this high frequency from the work environment, from the battlefield, from the conquering. We bring it into our home, and we expect everyone to adjust to it. And this is why,
Mm,
Christine, I spend a lot of time being quiet. In my family, I spend a lot of time being quiet because I believe, biologically it's kind of wired into me. But I spend a lot of time being quiet. That way I can observe. And that, like, I'll get up the other morning. I got up. My daughter was here with my grandson. He's 2.5 years old. He's loud. He's a spark plug. She and my wife were sitting on the couch. They were talking, and I got up late. It's weekend, and I got my coffee, and I came, and I just sat down at the end of the couch, and I didn't just jump into the conversation. I just sat there. I was just present. And then as I'm present, as I'm quiet, then she asked me a question about parenting. She asked me a question about my grandson, and why is he so loud? I'm like, well, because he's 2.5 years, because I understand the brain, so I can explain
right.
it. I settled into that. I didn't automatically come in and start saying, hey, you guys need to do this, this, and this, and this.
Man, hot dog. When you're talking about frequency, I recently have been reading a book by Hawkins, Letting Go,
Oh,
and
yes.
I really, really love it. And he assigns numerical value to, you said emotions are energy emotion. So two effectively emotional energies.
That's right.
So the lowest on the spectrum is shame at level
Mm-hmm.
50. And then
Mm-hmm.
as you get higher up, the energy levels rise.
Yes.
And there's something about like knows like. And so
Mm-hmm.
if our children are screaming, that doesn't mean that we go scream with them, but we kind of enter into that place with them rather than saying, stop screaming and trying to force them up to the level of peace.
Mm-hmm.
First, we're not even peaceful ourselves at that
Oh, there
point.
you go. There you
And
go.
so there's something about joining into with empathy that allows for kind of the meeting and then the rising up, and really it forces us to be a mirror for ourselves. If we
Mm-hmm.
find that we're not liking the vibration around us, well, are we actually at a place where we're kind of bringing it up slowly,
Mm-hmm.
tick by
Mm-hmm.
tick up in the emotional frequency? But in order for us to ever hope to change the dynamic, we have to come in and be curious about what it is first. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe that element of, thinking about kind of the state of being that we need to possess when we go into that home, recognizing before we can hope to bring any good, any change, anything to amplify what's already there, man, we need to be curious. Let's go see
Mm-hmm.
the landscape, see what it's like, feel it out, because maybe it actually doesn't even need to change to begin with. Why
That's
should,
right.
we're a hero at work, but maybe our home is actually a place where today I don't actually need to be the hero in my house and I just get to enter into the love that's there. Maybe there's
Mm-hmm.
a really peaceful place that I get to go find respite in. And then
Mm-hmm.
that raises a question that I would like to talk about. Are we even able to experience peace ourselves? I was talking with an executive who has had multiple successful exits. We were doing a knowing intensive. So, I was at his house for multiple days and we were just moving through his past and his present and where he's hoping to go. And it was interesting, Bryan, he wants to have a farm and have a ton of property, and I'm like, but is your nervous system able to actually exist in that type of peace? Are you
Mm-hmm.
actually able to go and exist in that wonder and in that beautiful haven? Or are you actually so programmed to putting out the fight, to being on the battlefield, that you don't have the ability to, yes, on your left hemisphere, fight the fight, but then do you actually have the ability on the right hemisphere to actually go and enjoy the property that you've worked so hard to create? So you're talking about how you're helping men with identifying their legacy. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what's the external ideal that we're saying we want? Do we have the inner world necessary to be able to go and exist in that external ideal? So I'd love to hear from you in that regard of what are some good, I guess you could say, even questions or litmus tests of, okay, am I actually even at a place where I'm contributing to the health of my home? Am I actually able to emotionally be able to live in this ideal that I'm saying I want?
Well, I think the litmus test is just honesty. It's honesty and authenticity. It's if you look in your home and you look around your home and you look within yourself, you know what you feel and what you don't feel. And so we spend a lot of time just bullshitting ourselves, and
Yeah.
we're just have a hard time being honest. And I believe it's because we are grown up having to wear so many different masks. So when you have to wear all these different masks and be all these different characters to all these different people, it's really hard to just be your authentic self. And there's a lot of shame associated with that, because the moment you become your authentic self and you're like, well, I don't feel happy. I feel angry. I feel sad. Then society has conditioned us to judge that. And so then that creates shame. So then we're in another negative feedback loop. It's a self-perpetuating cycle. So one of the things I really like to do is just say, and I believe this is really important energetically, is to just have a person spend time. Like if you want the farm, you want the ranch. Okay, that's fantastic. Now let's be in the farm and let's be in the ranch right now. And let's face all the struggles that come up trying to be in that space. Because the first thing that you're going to do when you start thinking about that farm and you're not conditioned for finding that peace within yourself, is you're going to encounter conflict and resistance. As soon as I say experience the farm, you're going to see it, and then your brain's going to go boom off to something else. And then I'm going to have to ask you to bring that back, come back to the farm. And let's just go through the conflict and the struggle and the tension. Because in order for me to really find the peace in the farm, I got to find the peace within myself. And so I've got to be willing to just go through the conflict and the confrontation so I can eventually command that feeling within myself. And when I can command that feeling in myself, I can take that same peace that I hope to create on my farm, which is fantastic because I'm actually looking at my own farm. I see my tractor.
Oh, I love it.
I see my cows and my pond. I can create that same peace wherever I go, because it's not about me being in the farm. It's about the anchoring and creating and manifesting the reality of the energy of the farm that's in me. And see, I've got to create that so I can be anywhere and be in my farm. And that's called resonant memory. I'm sure you know that. It's resonant memory, where and kids develop this early. And this, the first anchor they usually have is with their parents. They go to school and they get stressed. As soon as they get stressed, the resonant memory of the parent is a part of the co-regulating experience that helps them to calm down and navigate and manage through whatever that stressful experience is. But if you ask, which many of us do, and this is something we don't ever talk about. If you have really poor blueprints for co-regulation from your own childhood, and co-regulation, and just like attachment, is the dyadic regulation of emotion. So co-regulation is the ability to regulate emotion, for two people to regulate emotion together. That's very important. So if you have really poor blueprints for early co-regulation, which is the parent and the child, then when you go out into the world and you become stressed, you don't have a resonant anchor point. And so then when you become stressed, you go into survival because you don't have blueprint for relationship. And Bruce Perry says relationship is the most important thing. We're biologically engineered to be in relationship. But when you become stressed and you constrict into survival, and that becomes the dominant conditioned experience, you're not able to regulate and then to co-regulate. So it's like the parents who want peace in their home with their children, but they can't find love and peace within themselves. I'll say to a parent all the time, if you want your child to be regulated, you have to get regulated. A dysregulated parent cannot regulate a dysregulated child. So it's our first responsibility is to ourself and to our own inner peace.
So good. So good. So really, it's a good question for all of us to consider. what was the blueprint that was handed to me as a child? What did co-regulation look like? Did my parents know how to regulate? And if they didn't, then we probably don't know how to do it well, unless we've taken steps to kind of figure that out. So Bryan, I'm mindful of the time. This is so important and so helpful, and I'm just so grateful. So just a quick recap, as we're heading into Christmas, as we're heading into 7 to 8 days, maybe 10 days for some, where we're in this environment that frankly, maybe historically it hasn't been peaceful, because I'm thinking also for those who are single, who they don't have kids, but they're entering into their parents' home, and maybe that's actually got a lot of baggage there. They're engaging with cousins or aunts and uncles, and it's just like, my gosh, there's a lot that can come up just around family in general, whether it's our immediate family or not. I just want to return to those 3 steps, because you said at the, towards the beginning, there's a matrix of fear. At the core, we're either engaging with fear or we're engaging with love. And those are the primary emotions. So 3 steps to help with regulation this holiday season is to take 3 to 10 breaths, slow down, and then ask, how am I feeling? And where did this feeling come from? And y'all, I have found, like, excuse yourself and go to the bathroom. Like, the bathroom is a haven with family sometimes. And actually journal. I mean, gosh, I just know that my first year, especially right after my divorce, and it was just like such a painful time, I needed the little haven that the bathroom was. And also, just being willing to communicate with our families. If we know we're entering it a little bit more vulnerable this year, communicate ahead of time. And that's a hard thing to do, but it's so important, because it allows and sets the expectation to give you freedom to retreat when you need to. Anything
Can I
that you would
expand
add
on
to
that?
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
those are excellent points. And I want to say that the very first step is just the awareness. It's just the
Yeah.
awareness that there is a stress reality that exists underneath our consciousness that we're not tuned into, that we're not tapped into. And we all have access to it. So that's really important. So just knowing, hey, this feeling of anxiety that I've had, this anger, this agitation is actually me being stressed, which is actually me being scared. It's actually me
Yeah.
being scared. And so when you say take the 3 to 10 deep breaths, is which I also say, I want you to be conscious of the fact that that is the source of your power. When you are breathing in consciousness, you are breathing in life, you're breathing in love, and ultimately, when you are breathing, you're breathing in God. And when you're breathing in God, the power of God is all encompassing. So when you're not breathing, you're giving all your power away. So breathing is critical. And then the third thing that you also said there, Christine, is the bathroom becomes your friend. Yes, the bathroom is a contained space. Listen to this. A bathroom is quiet. A bathroom has less visual stimulation. A bathroom has less smells. A bathroom has a certain temperature. It's all reducing the sensory overload. And sometimes you need to reduce the sensory overload. I call that containment. You create a contained space for yourself. So yeah, use that freaking bathroom, go in there, close the door. You can also go for a walk. And you said journaling, a beautiful thing. Also self-talk. The process of talking to yourself out loud is a grounding mechanism, because what you're doing is you're able to depersonalize. When you're having the conversation, it takes all of that internal dialogue and it puts it outside of you. And by doing that, you actually have more control over it, which then grounds you more into the moment and more into the present.
Wow. Y'all have this on tap for when you need it over Christmas. Bryan, thank you so much. This has been such a gift.
Thank
I'm
you so
so
much.
grateful for the work that you do and the impact that you're making. Thank you, my friend.
My pleasure. God bless you. And thanks for everything that you're doing.